The other thing is if you take Social Security early, which is prior to full retirement age, you have to pay back some of that Social Security, and a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Mark, let's talk about tax planning. I know that's a lot of what you talk to your clients about. The subject of tax planning seems to get ignored by a lot of advisors out there. Tell us about the important conversations that you're having with your clients about these tax issues, but most people aren't having. First of all, the Trump tax changes. How are you talking about that with your clients?
Well, I think President Trump has done a lot of great things as far as the tax changes, and he's putting us, the people of this country and certainly corporations, in a better position to be more profitable, to keep sustained business. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges with states opening and closing certain businesses, et cetera, and that's going to have certain ramifications, unfortunately. But I think a lot of the changes have been positive for the most part. Taxes are still right near all-time lows. He did reduce them over where they were a couple years ago. The highest marginal tax rate right now is 37% as of 2020. Back in 2015, we were at 39.6. So, rates are still historically low. And, we have seen rates, and for so many people where they weren't around back then, and I wasn't either, but we saw rates back in the 50s and 40s, in the 90s and 80% range. In fact, we were in the 70s, we're at 70%. So, in the 80s, we're 50%. So still a lot lower. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, having somebody look at your investments. And tax planning doesn't mean we're preparing your taxes for you. We're going to work with your CPA, or if you don't have a CPA, we'll recommend one or work with you if you're using TurboTax or something like that. But the tax planning is a very often overlooked part of it. And I think, we review, when we meet with people, we review their 1099, their tax statements, to see if there's some ways that we can help you make better decisions and maybe save some money on taxes. We're not saying eliminate taxes, but certainly minimize those, and looking at some opportunities that might be there that you might not be taking advantage of. But I think, we are getting into a better position tax-wise, but realistically speaking, with all the stimulus spending, taxes are going to be going up. There's just no way around it.
We're talking about tax planning with Mark Silverman. And how about Roth conversions? How do they figure in as far as taxes are concerned?
Well, I think it's an often overlooked way that people aren't really looking at, and being proactive. And then now with the new tax changes, that one of the ones that Trump has initiated, it was before, once you hit 70 and a half, if you had an IRA account, a 401k, et cetera, you had to start taking your required minimum distributions at 70 and a half. Now the age is 72. So as long as you were not 70 and a half prior to January 1st of this year, you don't have to take your first RMD, required minimum distribution, until age 72. So it actually gives us another year and a half, if you're retired or you have some wiggle room in there, to do what's known as a Roth conversion, partial Roth conversion, which is a great planning strategy to bring that number down before you have to start taking those distributions that the government's going to tell you how much you have to take and pay taxes on. So it's often overlooked, but a lot of people aren't even familiar with it. And unfortunately, there are some CPAs out there that don't even mention it, which is also unfortunate.
Mark, a lot of people don't really understand taxation when it comes to Social Security. Can you take a moment to explain that?
So there's different ways as far as how Social Security is taxed. Unfortunately, depending on how much you make, no matter what age you are, Social Security is going to be taxed. Depending on how much you make, it could be either 50 or 85% of your Social Security benefits are taxed. So that's one thing that we need to take in consideration. The other thing is, if you take Social Security early, which is prior to full retirement age, you have to pay back some of that Social Security. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So it's important you understand that as well. And this is a decision. Once you take Social Security, it's set. You can't change it. It's like a pension. Once you take a pension and you determine how you're going to take it, you can't go back and change it if you figure out there was a better way. So you want to make sure you get it right the first time. And we have analysis, we have software that we use, which we can show you which is the best way, which is going to give you more bang for your buck. Obviously, with Social Security, the biggest determinant is your life expectancy. So depending on someone's normal life expectancy, a lot of times it makes sense to wait, because you are getting a guaranteed 8% per year on Social Security until age 70 when it maxes out. And the only place you get 8% guaranteed is through the government. I know there's commercials out there saying that you can get 10% on an annuity. It's not a true 10%, and it's a mythical number. It doesn't work that way, as most people probably learn.
You touched on this just a moment ago. We're talking about tax planning here. How about RMDs?
Yeah, I just mentioned it. So they did change the law. So our clients who were taking RMDs that don't have to this year. So this year, and this is a special year for 2020, anybody that needed to take an RMD or was required to take an RMD no longer has to this year. So it's a one-time waiver. So what we did with our clients is we went back to each client and we basically turned off the RMD unless the client needed the money. And a lot of our clients, are fortunate enough to be in a position where they don't need that RMD, which means that money's going to stay in their account and they don't have to pay taxes on it. They will have to do an RMD next year, but this year they can skip it. So I'd say majority of our clients, we've skipped the RMD unless those cases where the people need the RMD for, living expenses or whatnot. But if you don't need that money and you don't want to pay the taxes on that money this year, that is an option only this year only.
Well, we talked earlier about all the money that's going out from the government to individuals and corporations and different companies, and the national debt is sky high. How will that affect your tax planning for the future?
I've said it before. I think, logically speaking, taxes have to go up. The more this government spends, this debt, I don't think I'll see it paid off in my lifetime. I hope my teenage daughter maybe will see a country where the budget is balanced at some point. But the way that money's going out this year, I don't see how that's even going to be possible.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. And, it's unfortunate that this debt's going to just keep crippling. And the longer, with these states closing and opening and all this other stuff and unemployment, and it's going to cripple this country, and something's going to have to happen. But I think most people are in agreement that if you think taxes are high now, they're going to be higher in the future. I think most people would agree with that statement, that they will be higher, not lower or the same in the future. Which
leads me to my last question, just to reiterate, there is no way that taxes aren't going to be higher in the future. It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. I don't know one person that thinks that taxes are going to be lower going forward. Even if Trump wins, hopefully, taxes have to go up because this money's got to get paid back at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter who gets elected, in
it matters
later in the year. Well, it matters, yeah.
Matters. It matters, but
taxes are going to go up no matter
Trump
what.
In office, they have to go up.
Yeah.
The money's got to come from somewhere.
For sure.
The debt's not going to pay itself off, unfortunately.
Well, tax planning should be a part of the conversation. And as you mentioned earlier, there are some advisors out there who don't even get into this with their clients. And so it's a good time to assess anyway, to assess a lot of things. And if you'd like to have a conversation with Mark Silverman about your tax situation, then I'm going to give you the number in just a moment. But Mark, what can they expect to hear when they come see you?
Well, first we start off with an introductory call. So, if you have an interest, the first step is you send us a text or give us a call. We'll get you on the calendar. You have a conversation with me. And depending on where we go from there, we can either have you come into the office for a meeting. We can do a Zoom call. We can do a phone call, whatever is most convenient. I like to meet people face to face, to be quite honest. I'm more of it's a relationship business, but I get it with everything going on. If you want to do a Zoom instead, that's fine. We'll make it whatever way we'll meet with you, however you want to meet. But we'll talk about these sorts of things and address the concerns that you may have, whether you do it yourself or you're working with someone. Now's a great time to evaluate where you're at, whether you're retired or close to retirement or just getting started, whatever it might be. We want to try to help you and give you the right advice. And the first step is to reach out.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management LLC and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.